What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Dylan here. Super excited for you all today because we are, I'm gonna be reacting to Dara Khosrowshahi, Uber CEO's brand new interview with the Rideshare Guy. So we're gonna be listening to it, watching it together. I'm gonna be reacting to it, giving my thoughts. And yeah, I'm super pumped. So before I get started, I want to thank our sponsor, Solo, which is an incredible company that's giving drivers now guaranteed pay. So when you sign up with our link, it's free to sign up. And they give you $15 when you use our link. We have a special partnership with them. The Rideshare Guy is actually an investor, an advisor. But yeah, when you use our link, they're gonna send you $15 just for signing up, and you get access to their app and some of their incredible features like mileage tracking, automated mileage tracking, federal estimated tax projections, and a whole lot more. It's the business app for gig workers. So check out Solo with our link below, get signed up, get your 15 bucks. Every Uber driver, Lyft driver, gig worker should download it immediately right now to get your 15 bucks, and then also, you know, make some extra money. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, my friends, here we go. Interview with Uber CEO Dara Khosrowshahi on driver earnings, commission, expenses, safety, and more. This is gonna be a juicy one, so buckle up, grab your popcorn, my friends, or in my case, a nice ice cold Red Bull. We're filming this video at about midnight, so keep in mind, my neighbors probably might start yelling at me in the middle of this because I'm a loud boy. Okay, let's listen in.
So our guest today needs no introduction. I'm speaking with Uber CEO Dara Khosrowshahi. Uber just made the big announcement recently that
well, maybe you need some introduction because Uber CEO Travis Kalanick stepped down. This is the new guy in town, Dara Khosrowshahi.
Rolling out upfront fares for drivers to most cities in the country over the next couple months. So drivers will now be able to see the destination, how much they're going to earn on each and every single trip before they accept a ride, which is something drivers have been asking for a long time. So we're going to talk about that. Uber's also rolling out features like Trip Radar and a new cash award for Uber Pro program, and a few other things which we'll detail in a blog post and leave a link to in the description or the show notes. So
yeah, shout out to the Rideshare Guy. He is awesome. They have an awesome blog, YouTube channel. Go subscribe to them. I'll give the video a thumbs up. I'm surprised this doesn't have more views. It only has 4,000 views. So let's try to get more traffic over to him. Shout out to Harry from the Rideshare Guy. He's great. And yeah, let's keep watching.
In today's interview with Dara, we'll talk about the main part of this announcement, which is obviously the upfront fares for drivers, and really why it took so long to come about, why Uber is rolling this out now, and also why are there sometimes strings attached to popular driver programs like this in the form of either acceptance rate requirements or even limits on destination filters. So we'll spend a bit of time on driver earnings. We know this is important to drivers, why Dara said drivers are earning $39 per active hour a couple months ago, and what exactly is an
$39 per active hour. I don't know about that.
Active hour, right? Dara also says that earnings...
What is an active hour as opposed to a non-active hour? Because you're kind of always like active driving.
Have dropped 25% since then, so we'll talk about that. And of course, what Uber is doing when it comes to rising gas prices and other expenses due to inflation, right? Drivers obviously have the gross income and then the expenses to consider since they are responsible for that. So we'll ask Dara about that. And also, I really wanted to ask Dara, what's a fair commission for Uber to charge, since this is a big complaint, just how much Uber takes from every single ride. And Dara says, we'll hear why Dara says Uber's commission should be 20%. And then finally, we'll also touch on driver safety. Uber requires drivers to go through a lot of hoops, but passengers, not so much. So we'll talk about all that and more in today's interview with Dara Khosrowshahi. Really appreciate everyone who sent in questions and comments in preparation for this interview. And I'd love to hear from you. Either leave a comment below or send me an email, harry@therideshareguy.com. Let me know what you thought of this interview. Wanted to give you that quick overview of what we're going to discuss. And just so you know, there weren't any topics that were off limit in this interview. The only thing that I couldn't ask Dara about was anything related to basically because they're in a financial quiet period. So anything related to like basically the company.
These things are getting demonetized. All my videos about this are getting demonetized. Let's get started.
Well, how about you?
Here we go.
All right, Dara, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to have you back on the podcast and the YouTube channel. It's been a few years, but so you're in the same office with a new chair.
Exactly, something.
Nice office there. Looks like a matte black library he's in. You got about 75 different color coordinated books here. Is that an entire encyclopedia right there? What is this guy reading on his spare time? He's got a couch in his office. Kind of looks like my couch.
Going to change, but the chairs are much more comfortable.
Very cool. Well,
I got a gamer chair too, guys.
I'm excited to dig in because Uber just announced a slew of updates, improvements to the driver experience. So definitely excited to dig into that with you today. And, I think one of the things that Uber just announced, they're rolling up this upfront pricing and trip radar in a number of new markets. So drivers will now be able to see all the information about a trip when they get a request come in. And I have to say this is good timing because one of the top requests that my audience wanted me to ask you about was this very feature. So I'd love to hear your thoughts and have you dig in there.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was, listen, I think if you're listening.
Dara Khosrowshahi is kind of going for the black long sleeve Steve Jobs look. Do you guys notice that? Just a little observation there.
Listening to drivers, that this is one of the top pain points of being a driver. And I think we have started to listen to drivers, and I think in the past, it's like guilty as charged. I don't think we were as connected deeply with our drivers and taking the kind of feedback that we want to in order to keep building a product that's like not just as flexible as you want it to be with good earnings, et cetera, but just the product that they're asking for. And so we have this group like Uber Crew, who they're drivers, they listen to their community, et cetera. And this was the top pain point in terms of driver's experience, which is they don't know the destination up front. There's some guessing, and often they don't know the fare up front. And our getting that information to them, listen, it's in our interest. It took a bunch of deep engineering work. It's not easy to do necessarily, but it improves the driver experience. And it also reduces cancellation on the side of riders as well. So ultimately, it was the right thing to do. It's a win-win. It took a bunch of work in the back end, but we've rolled it out in a number of cities, and we've been really happy with the results. And we're going to roll it out. We're going to continue to roll it out, and it is a number one feature that I'm personally super excited for.
Very cool. Yeah, no, and I think I appreciate that Uber is doing more in terms of Uber Crew and listening to drivers. I know you yourself, we've interviewed Uber executives in the past. They've talked about their own experience and your experience driving and delivering. So I think that's very cool to see. I mean, I will say, right, these are things that, these features, I think I remember writing an article maybe 6-7 years ago saying, wow, it's crazy that you don't know where the rider's going. And the rider doesn't know that either, right? So I think that this feature...
About time, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess...
Yeah, it's about time.
I think drivers are definitely happy to see it. Some impression might be, what took so long? Do you think that it's kind of, I think you sort of mentioned, right, that it wasn't a big focus of the company before. Do you think it just wasn't that important before and now it is, or it wasn't as feasible? Like, why now? Why do you think now is the important time? Why does this matter so much to Uber? And it matters to drivers.
Yeah, so I think why now is one is we are really focused on drivers' needs. I mean, I think the most important factor in terms of Uber's growth is the number of drivers that we have on the platform, their satisfaction, driver retention is continuing to improve. It's like we want drivers on the platform, we want them to be happy, we want them to be satisfied with their earnings, and we want them to continue to grow with us. So it's good for business for us to introduce features that drivers want. Now, what was keeping us to some extent from doing it was the way that we priced fares and the fact that fares in the past were based on...
I hope that Rideshare Guy is actually going to ask some deep questions.
Simple time and distance, right? And that was kind of an accepted practice. And by the way, it was a very understandable way for us to say, this is what you're going to get paid for said trip. But what fixed time and distance failed to take into account is, well, how far is a pickup? How long are you drive to pick up that passenger? And then where the destination is, because you could have two trips that are equal time and distance, but if one destination has a much lower chance of your being able to come back or go to wherever you want to go. And in that case, like, our interests are totally aligned.
Bro, this guy, I'm sorry, Uber CEO, I feel like it's a little bit boring interview.
With a driver, which is, you know, we want you giving rides to people and earning.
What about the driver protests? The drivers are upset. Let's give drivers some more money. What about, let's get to this stop. Let's just get to this.
That's how we earn money as well. But this construct of time and distance being the determining factor then essentially causes us to misprice trips. And so if essentially you're structurally mispricing trips in terms of the true value of that trip, then you become limited in the amount of information that you can give drivers as to the nature of that trip. So once we said, hey, let's break apart time and distance, let's price in a true way, then we could give you upfront pricing and destination as well. That's the breakthrough ultimately for us.
Got it. Well, and I mean, let's talk about time and distance for a while, because I think the per mile and the per mile rate, I think has always been something that drivers look to when they think about their pay. It says, hey, you know, here's how much I'm paid, right? If you ask a lot of drivers, you know, they'll say, oh, you know, the per mile rate has not increased, or it's in some cases it's gone down, you know, over the past 3, 4, 5 years. So,
why does it, did you guys notice that he's smiling when he says the price hasn't gone up?
You know, the per mile rate has not increased, or it's in some cases it's
why is he smirking?
Over the past.
Why is he smirking? I see you smirking, Uber CEO. All right, this is an investigative research.
3, 4, 5 years. So I'm curious to know how you think about, you know, how drivers are thinking about pay, right? And sort of how Uber is, right? Because I think a lot of drivers, you know, I had a driver message me and said, you know, rates, you know, my per mile rate hasn't gone up, and if anything, it's gone down over the past 7 years. So, you know, I think a lot of drivers track it. And so I'm curious, you know, what you think about how drivers think about their pay, like that per mile aspect.
I think the per mile aspect of it is a really useful shortcut for you to understand why you're getting paid X or Y. So I think like there's strength in that, there's comfort in that, there's understandability in that, and that's important. But at the same time, it misprices trips. So like if you ask us what took us so long, etc., that was the issue, which is we knew that drivers really like time and distance because it's clear, you can calculate on your own, etc. But ultimately, I think the system that we're introducing now, which is absolutely, listen, we're going to take into account how far you drive because, you know, that's gasoline prices, etc. We're going to take into account how long it takes, etc. But there are other factors, and ultimately, you know, what we're hoping to get to is a world where earnings continue to be healthy and, if anything, improve. And you're getting more information, so you're making, you know, kind of the information flow is even versus where it was before, which was...
I'm gonna interrupt this podcast really quickly to tell you all about WorkSolo. I know the Uber CEO is talking about, you know, being transparent with your earnings. Well, if you sign up for WorkSolo, they're actually gonna tell you how much money you're gonna make. They have a pay guarantee feature where they're gonna tell you when you go out and drive a certain hour, you're gonna make $38 in that hour, guaranteed, okay? They are doing what no other company, not even Uber, has the, I'll just say it, you know, balls to do. Solo's putting their money where their mouth is, and I think every one of you guys should sign up. For one, it's free to sign up, and they're gonna send you $15 just for signing up, right? You got to sign up for this free nationwide app. And also you can take home $5,000 more a year for the average app-based driver. It's tax deduction. Sign up right now if you'd like for Solo. And let's get back to the video. Use the link below.
Not even where we knew where the destination was, and you didn't.
Well, no, and I think definitely overall, you know, I think a lot of drivers have reacted positively. You know, we just did sort of a 20-week update from one of our contributors in Minneapolis talking about his experience, you know, with this upfront, and, you know, he was a big fan and, you know, talked about some of those long trips, and, you know, he calculates, you know, by the mile, right, how much is he going to make? And so I think a lot of drivers have a lot more of that choice and flexibility with this system. So I'm curious, you know, is there any, you know, sort of providing this information, you know, I think sometimes it comes with strings attached, right? In California, for example, you have to accept 5 of your last 10 trips in order to see this information. In these other cities, it doesn't have that requirement. Another really popular driver feature, destination filter, you only get 2 per day, and at certain times of busy traffic or things like that, you actually can't use it at all in some cities. So I think one thing that drivers love about, we talked about what they love, but what they don't like are the strings attached. So I'm curious, why are those strings attached why are they in place? And then is there anything Uber can potentially do to mitigate that in the future?
So I'm hoping, and I'm hoping that we can remove some of those strings. So for example, the string attached of you get to see destination, assuming that you accept a certain percentage of your trips. If we're doing a really good job pricing, and essentially like we price the trip right, your acceptance rates will naturally be at a high rate. And by the way, if it's not, we're getting pricing wrong. That's our fault. It's not your fault. So I'm hoping that the new construct allows us to take some of those kind of conditions.
What do you guys think? Okay, for real though. Do you guys believe that, Uber's being better with their earnings and driver? I feel like it hasn't really changed a whole lot. Which, by the way, big announcement, my friends. I'm getting my car finally fixed on the 15th. What's the date today? The 9th. So, hopefully, in a week, my car's going into the repair shop. It ended up costing about $2,000-$3,000 to get fixed. I gotta pay my deductible. And then I will be back out on the road driving for either Uber or for Lyft. Uber's being really sus about my background check, but Lyft I'm approved. So I'm gonna get back out there and start doing rides again because my car is so dented up. I've gotten in three people have crashed into my car within the past year. So I just, but I'm gonna start driving again. So I will start vlogging and all my rides, or not my ride earnings.
Off. That's the ultimate. So again, the information balance is there, and we're making decisions based on the attractiveness of that ride, matching the price that you're going to get paid. That's ultimately where we want to go. We're not going to be like, this is going to take some experimentation. There's some deep tech that goes into it, and there's some optimization, because actually the signal that we want from you, Harry, is like, if you're not accepting a trip, then we're underpricing it. Then we gotta then the algos have to understand it, price it better the next time, et cetera. So there's a path to get there, and I'd ask for a little bit of patience and trust. That is the goal. Our goals are aligned.
For sure. No, I think that's definitely a fair point, and I think it's one thing that drivers have always complained about, and Uber is doing a better job in the past. You didn't have the opportunity to opt out of Uber Pool, for example, with Uber Share that's come back online now. It's sort of like, if you want to do these trips, and there are times where you want to do short trips, or you want to do a bunch of short trips in order to get a Quest bonus, for example, where it makes sense. So I think that to me is key, is that as long as Uber isn't, telling people they have to take it, right? Sort of like you said, right? We want to make the trips so attractive that they want to do these. Our contributor in Minnesota has a 45% acceptance rate right now. So I think there's a bit of work to do there. But like you said, right now you have that option as a driver. You see that information. So for me, as many of the strings attached that can be removed going into the future, I may hold you to that in our next interview. We'll see how Uber is doing on some of those.
Yeah, listen, it's a goal. And again, the more strings we have to attach, the worse our pricing tech is. So I'll take that to our pricing folks and push it down.
Yeah, very, very cool. And I think the last question I had along this line is, I think one thing for drivers that are independent contractors, this has always come, they really feel that they want this information. They should know that where the trip is going and all that, especially if you're a true independent contractor. I'm curious how much that plays into this decision. And then if there's also, are there additional steps Uber can take to build on this type of feature? Like, do you want to tease any features, that you're building that can even expand on this, or, take this to the next level? I'm sure we can touch on Trip Radar too, because I think this is in that same family of features.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was going to talk to. Listen, is this related to independent contractor? Frankly, the answer is no. It's like related to what drivers were telling us. So this was, our goal was to have a roadmap to get you your destination. And
it might be a side benefit though, right? Because obviously if you're an independent contractor, you do have more control over the trips you're taking and the prices you're setting, right? So I think it's kind of one of the things that, maybe detractors have always pointed to, and now Uber is starting to address some of this.
Definitely, but it wasn't the goal. Like it could be a great outcome. That's wonderful. And yes, we absolutely agree that drivers are independent contractors, and the more independence we can build into the system and the more power we give drivers to have agency, I think the better for both of us. Trip Radar is one of those. Actually, like it was a
okay. Trip Radar, guys. I know this is getting a little boring, so I'm surprised if you're still watching this. But Trip Radar basically allows you to see the general area across streets of where you're going and where you're heading, and also be able to, I believe, choose different rides as well based on the area you want to go to. So, yeah. I mean, to be honest, when I was out driving, I honestly didn't really care that much where the heck I was going. I mean, I know some drivers care. After a while, I was just like, yeah, just accept the ride, and then you just do the ride, and it's like, whatever. You don't, I mean, you're just out there to make money. You can't really, I mean, beggars can't be choosers, right? We're all out here trying to make money. If a ride doesn't want to go where we're going, then just don't take it.
Second order result
it's like, I think we would just prefer higher earnings rather than, oh, Trip Radar. That doesn't really solve the issue.
Our doing upfront pricing. We weren't planning to do Trip Radar. And Trip Radar came about because we actually saw that our systems generally are matching and pricing based on the probability of said driver wanting to take this trip and you're being optimal match in terms of network efficiency. You're covering the least amount of space to get to.
Oh, wow. So they're actually choosing rides for you based on whether or not you're going to accept the ride. Wow. So they really do see, you know, what rides you're denying and kind of give you filtered based off that. That's crazy.
To the pickup, etc. But those are predictions that could be wrong. So the concept of Trip Radar is, not only are we going to match you, let's say, the traditional way, but we're going to give you signal as to what other trips are available. And let's say you may be, hey, I want to drive for another hour, so I don't want a long trip. I may not want to go in a particular direction. There are other characteristics of trips that may be important to you that may not be important to the average driver that we're not taking into account in terms of pricing. So the Trip Radar has two benefits. One is more choice for the driver, and you can accept it if you want, and hopefully then you get that match. But again, it gives a signal as to how we should be thinking about these trips, their attractiveness, and how do we price them in the future.
Very cool. Well, you know, I'm big fans of both of these features, and I think, you know, the feedback so far has been pretty positive from drivers and sort of like you said, it's something they've been asking for a long time. You know, when we survey thousands of drivers and talk to tens of thousands more, the two things that always come up, as you might know, pay and flexibility. And I think this definitely does a lot to address flexibility. I'm curious, though, how do you think these features will impact actual driver earnings? Should they expect to earn same, less, more? Because as you know, this is obviously one of the reasons why we all do it, right?
The design spec around these features is for the
good question, but let's see the answer.
Driver to get paid the same, and essentially
the same. We want more money, bro. Bump up the pay, bro. Inflation's going through the roof.
They have more information and be able to choose their destinations, so that the experience is better for the same amount of income.
Who would have thought that this interview would be so stressful?
A particular driver based on then what they do, what trips are they accepting, what trips are they not accepting, their behavior may wind up making, less or the same or more. But the design is same earnings level, more information, which should drive better satisfaction.
Got it. Well, then let's talk about driver pay for a second, because obviously, as you know, this is an important, if not the most important topic to drivers. So I think the added flexibility, same pay sounds great. But, in a Bloomberg interview you did a couple months ago, you mentioned that drivers were earning $39 an hour during utilized hours, right, which would be period 2 and 3. So, we posted a clip on YouTube. In a Bloomberg interview you did a couple months ago, you mentioned that drivers were earning $39 an hour during...
Here's the big question. Some people are saying Uber CEO got caught lying in this clip. They're saying $39 an hour, and then he's backpedaling. Listen to this.
Utilized hours, right, which would be period 2 and 3. So, we posted a clip on YouTube, very popular, but there was also a lot of skepticism about this figure. So I'm curious, what do you think about the state of driver earnings right now, and, what should they expect going forward?
Yeah, so I understand the skepticism, but you should understand, we're not going to lie about this stuff. I think one.
I just don't it's just the wrong energy he's thrown out there. It's like laughing at driver pay. He knows drivers are upset about pay. Why are you going to be laughing?
we're not going to lie about this.
I mean, keep in mind, this man, Uber CEO, I mean, I'm just putting, just putting this out there. This man is worth $6 billion. And we all know the average Uber driver, they're not making very much money. And he's sitting here laughing about driver pay. I don't know, guys. It just kind of like, I don't know. I just wish he would have taken this interview like more seriously. Like, this was his chance to really win over the hearts of drivers, and instead he's laughing in our faces. I don't know. Does anybody else feel that?
I think one
like, it's not funny. It's really not funny, the fact that you have Uber drivers sleeping in their cars. They can't afford to pay their rent, their bills. They're paying absurd amount of gas money just to drive, and you're sitting there laughing. It's not funny, bro.
Addition to that is, this was in top 20 cities in the U.S. Okay. So if I did do that,
bigger cities,
to be specific. So that's one. That was where pay was. Pay now is about $30 an hour, including tips in the U.S. across the U.S. It's come down a little bit as more drivers have.
And so this is during utilized hours, sort of that same period, 2 and 3.
Yes, this is during utilized hours. The utilization is really high, as you don't know what it is, but utilization are healthy levels. And for us, part of the reason why the per hour number is a bit lower is because there's less surge in the system. We think that's a good thing, and I think to some extent ETAs and surge were levels that, from a long-term standpoint, weren't in anyone's interest. I know the pay per hour was pretty good, but I think ultimately are bringing surge down, are improving ETAs. You're having to drive kind of lower distances for the pickup, improves the experience for everyone. And we hope that we can, and those kinds of earnings levels are still healthy earnings levels for the kind of flexible work that we're offering.
For sure. Well, and I think the one thing that may be a bit confusing for drivers is, frankly, like how we talk about earnings, right? That same week that, you were doing the Bloomberg interview, I got a push notification from my Uber driver app that said drivers in LA are averaging $29 an hour. And then I reached out to Uber and confirmed with them that was actually period 1 through 3. So sort of all your online time. Right? So kind of make...
Wow. Yeah, they need to get this straight. I hate when these ads are like, you can make up to $40 an hour. And it's like, I mean, you're saying 39 bucks an hour? I know when I go out and drive, I'm making like 20.
Makes sense, right? If you're at that point 2 months ago.
And then you're paying for gas, wear and tear in your car. It's like you're averaging like $5 an hour.
Well, if you're at $39 per hour, you're at about 75% utilization.
If y'all have ever gone out and drive full-time, 40, 50, 60 hours a week, you very quickly, you can do the math on how much money you're actually taking home after expenses, after wear and tear in your car, after all that stuff, gas, etc., depreciation, car depreciation. You're making what, $1,000 in a week, and you're paying $200, $300 in gas. I mean, and then you're paying wear and tear in your car. It's another couple $100. You're really, driving 40, 50 hours a week. You're only taking home, like $300, $500.
Utilization.
And one time you get a parking ticket, whatever, or a traffic ticket, that's another $300 out the window.
That would bring you down to $30 an hour. LA is a top 20 market. So I think the numbers actually sort of check out, like you said. But I guess it kind of brings up the larger point, like how should we be thinking about driver earnings? Like when we're talking about per hour, like to me, I don't actually think it's that fair to use utilized hours, right? If you go to McDonald's and you have a cashier and they're working and helping you check out, right? They're being paid for that. And then when
that's a good, he just called out Uber CEO right there. Good job, Harry Campbell. He's saying at any other job, nobody else calculates, utilized hours.
Cashier leaves, they're all of a sudden not being paid, right? They're still being paid for that time. So to me, the key metric, I think Uber should always be presenting earnings and sort of that full online time. So I'm curious to sort of get your point of view on that, how Uber is thinking about that going forward.
I think yours is a fair point of view. Our point of view is we don't know what some drivers do laps. Sometimes, they're waiting for a ping from Uber, or they may be waiting for a ping from some other, whether it's delivery or Lyft, etc. So it's hard for us to know factually. Whether you're kind of waiting around and just on Uber, and hopefully that's the case for us. That's in our self-interest. But we don't know that, so that's why, based on what we actually know, utilized hours are the metric that I can relate to you factually. Because
I mean, yeah, he does have a decent comeback, but I know for me, I don't know. Gosh, this is just a rough interview. I mean, he's not, it's a good interview. It's a good interview. Just rough to kind of hear the reality behind all this stuff.
I don't know what else you're doing.
Got it. I guess it is, yeah, maybe we don't need to belabor this point, but maybe it's important to very, clearly state, right, like what the earning, if you're sort of talking about earnings per hour, right, Uber is sometimes using periods 1 through 3 and sometimes periods 2 through 3. You could sort of say, well, when earnings are really high, we kind of do period 1 through 3. When they drop that down, we go more.
I don't know about this period thing. Period. I don't know. You guys ever hear about this period 1 through 3 thing? That's not something I've ever heard Uber talk about.
To utilize. So I think definitely, I won't bug you too much about that, but your team may get an email or two from me if I keep seeing
I like getting bugged. I like getting bugged. Like the feedback, we're trying to get better, so I don't mind your bugging me at all.
All right, cool. Well, so we talked about earnings, and I think that, the other big concern for drivers right now, as you brought up, gas and inflation. I think that we see companies across the board raising prices. One of my favorite places for a quick burrito, Chipotle, just raised their prices by 4%. My kids' yogurt used to cost $4, and now it costs $6.50 for four or five little yogurt drinks. So I think drivers are seeing this, not only in their personal expenses, but also gas and inflation. So
yes, and most companies raise, their hourly wage for their workers. That's what companies do. Minimum wage is going up and up and up. Now in LA, minimum wage is 16 bucks an hour. You go try to get a job at In-N-Out right now, they're starting to pay 17 an hour. And Uber, there was just some data show that Uber and Lyft, their rates have been staying the same over the past few years, which is not good. See what he has to say. I'm assuming he's going to come up with some other excuse.
Uber added the temporary fuel surcharge, and I think that has definitely helped to offset some of the fuel. But what about all the other expenses a driver has? We talked about the gross income, really, of a driver, right? Those numbers that we talked about before. But drivers are responsible for gas and really all of their expenses. So I'm curious, what you think about those going forward, because those are obviously up.
Totally. I mean, the gas prices are, I think, a thorn in everyone's side. Thank God they're coming down a little bit, but they're coming down a little bit. They're not where...
Yeah, they've been down a little bit over the past month or so.
Yeah, but believe me, no one's happy about it, including us. So on that basis, we really focus on the Uber Pro refresh of the Uber Pro program. And there, one, we focused on earnings, which is there's going to be kind of a cash reward for being a Diamond member, which we'll talk more about when we're ready.
You guys really tease that one. A lot of drivers want to know details, so I'm sure once it's ready, we'll be able to talk about that.
It'll be ready, and just to be upfront, it's going to differ based on cities, etc. But,
for sure.
We'll definitely let you know. We wouldn't tease it unless we thought that
Uber Diamond
would be happy with it. But on the expense side, it doesn't include discounts on gas. And depending on your level, it'll be 2 to 6% discounts on gas. It'll be 6% for Pro, which is, we think, really attractive. Up to 7% with certain retailers and based on kind of certain circumstances.
Right.
So we're really working hard to get you those kinds of discounts. Chipotle is awesome, but if you want to buy the 7-Eleven, we have discounts at 7-Eleven as well.
So the 2 to 6% is through the debit card, right?
Correct. Thank you for that.
Because I think it's actually, I'm a big fan of a lot of these services. One of the, we've covered Upside before. I know they're a big partner of Uber's and a lot of folks like that. But also, people have their own gas stations that they like to use or their own.
And also, Upside gives you discounts only at gas stations that are the most expensive ones in the town. I know all my Upside, GetUpside is the gas discount app. All the gas stations that they want you to go to get the discounts basically ends up costing the same amount as just going to the cheaper ones.
Rewards program. So I think anytime you can kind of combine those debit card rewards with your own rewards program or with a GetUpside, right, that's when it starts to be really valuable for drivers. So I just kind of wanted to highlight, and we'll share more information for drivers about that debit card, because I do think, that's sort of on top of what they can get.
Exactly right. And the other cool thing about the debit card is that it's instant pay, no fee. So the minute you earn, it's available for you. You don't need to ask for a cash out or at all. So it's very, very quick. And then obviously the hero benefit, I think, of the debit card, matched up with the loyalty program is up to 7% off gas. And then we also get you a Gold Star membership at Costco as well. So Costco's a great retail, and that's another way that you can save.
Yeah, also a popular spot for gas if you don't mind waiting in the line.
Yeah.
So, so that's gas. What about, inflation?
Not actually bad, the Costco thing. I know their gas is cheaper.
Other expenses. I think one thing that's sort of been on, gas is very popular to talk about because the prices go up and down. We've been hearing from a lot of drivers who, say, when they go in to get their car repaired, right? Or these other sort of miscellaneous expenses and even just personal expenses. I'm curious, right? Like we talked before about, sort of how much drivers are earning. It's come down, a bit over the past 2 months, but costs are going up. So are drivers, expected to make less going into the future? Or, what does Uber think about, I guess, that expense piece, right? Because you see a lot of businesses across the board raising prices to account for that, and Uber may be doing that, but if we don't use that per mile and per minute, it's sort of hard for drivers to know, right?
Yeah, there's no question that the driver revenue is healthy compared to where it has been historically, and prices have increased for an Uber ride, and that has been passed along and more to drivers, which is totally appropriate based on the environment.
Is that true? All Uber drivers, comment that right now. Have you noticed you're getting paid more per ride than you did a year or two ago?
We are working on, because a driver is essentially a small business owner, and there's the revenue and then there's the cost, and ultimately it's about the profit, your take-home profit. So we do have partnerships now with repair shops, auto repair.
We're not talking about partnerships with discounts and blah, 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 blah. We're talking about making more money, bro. I'm sorry if this is an unprofessional reaction, but this is just literally making me upset. Like, all he's talking about is his partnerships and discounts. We don't care about partnerships and discounts. Yeah, sure, it helps you get 5% off gas. Okay, but we're talking about making more freaking money, bro.
Spare tires.
And literally, he just dodged the whole question. Harry Campbell raised a great question. Are drivers going to be making more? And then all of a sudden, well, we got, partnerships with Costco. What are you talking about, bro? I'm talking about making more money driving.
Tires, etc. And we will continue to work on making sure that those deals are better than ever. We wanted to focus our efforts on gas because that has been the most alarming increase. But you should expect us to come back to you with more discount, with more merchants, especially as it relates to costs that are directly related to driving.
Got it. So, like you said, right, gas and these other inflationary expenses are sort of beyond Uber's control. You can do as much as you can. I guess one, the sort of final thing that I want to chat about on the expense side of things is the one expense that I guess Uber can control and related to a driver is the commission that they take on every ride. Uber launched this new statement that I actually like, where I don't think it's quite rolled out yet, but at the end of the week and the end of the month, you can sort of see very clearly how much Uber is now taking, out of all of your pay. So I think it's becoming more transparent. But if you ask individual drivers, this is another probably top question or top complaint really is that, they'll say, oh, Uber takes 40, 50, 60% of every single fare, because there are rides, right, where the commission is higher and some where it's lower. But I guess to you, like, what's a fair...
Which I do not understand. Why is some rides different and why isn't it just a set price?
Commission, right? This is, a lot of retailers don't like paying the 30% to Apple, right? Amazon and others. But I guess to you, like, what's a fair commission? What would you tell drivers who are complaining about the commission that Uber takes?
So I think one issue to note as it relates to our commission and booking fee, et cetera, is we're also responsible for insurance costs. And insurance costs, unfortunately, are very, very high in the U.S. due to a number of factors. Mm-hmm. And that's something that kind of is, it's consistent. It has unfortunately been increasing, even though the rate of incidents has been decreasing. The cost per incident for a variety of reasons has been increasing. So it's not a strict pass-through in any way, shape, or form. But when I look at our economics, post-insurance, again, it's not a direct pass-through, et cetera, but that's not how we price. We think that something in the 20% range is fair. It's less than the 30% that Apple charges, et cetera. Yeah. And we think that's a general number that is a fair number. What shows up is higher, but the major reason why it's higher to some extent is the cost of insurance that we have to bear as well. So I think that's something else the driver should keep in mind.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, we work with a lot of fleet owners and got some great insurance partners. And frankly, this is like one of the biggest barriers to starting new fleets and starting new companies is the insurance. I know it's expensive, but also I think most drivers, they probably aren't aware and also don't really care, right? It's sort of like I see the commission. And so it seems like the opportunity there is to sort of highlight some of those expenses, right? If Uber is taking a 35% commission, but 15% of that is actually insurance, like as a driver, it seems like it'd be in Uber's best interest to let me know. So I don't just think that, you're taking all that money for yourself. Or, even small stuff, right? Like the credit card processing fee, I imagine, that's probably 2-3% on every single fare, right? So of 20%, that's a decent little chunk there, right? So I think that seems like the opportunity there, I guess, in terms of commission.
I do think that there's a lot more that we can do in terms of transparency, communication. And I think the other factor that you point out, Harry, is like we do have a higher take on certain rides, but then we take a lower take on other rides. And generally, we're optimizing for an average take, and basically sometimes the price goes up or down in order for us to most efficiently match a collection of possible matches to basically get as much business into our system as possible. So in that way...
It's actually pretty crazy. I actually didn't really understand the insurance bit. I think the Uber CEO, I think he explained that bit pretty well. What do you guys think? I think he explained the kind of price model pretty good.
Or having this variable take rate to some extent is in driver's interest, and it's in our interest because it essentially increases the business at the same average take rate. And we just have to do better in terms of that communication.
Yeah. Well, and insurance, like you mentioned, right? It's a big cost. You talked about, I know Uber has been doing a lot of features around things like dash cams, and I guess even tying into safety. The sort of final thing that I wanted to end this interview with was safety, because I think this is one thing. Driver safety really is one of the big areas of concern for drivers that I don't know if a lot of folks at Uber corporate are really aware of. Just how big of a concern or an issue it is for drivers. I mean, you've done some driving and delivering, so that drivers have to go through background checks. They've got to get their vehicle inspected. There's all these requirements. They get rated after every single trip. But for passengers, there's... Wait.
Uber CEO went out and did rideshare and delivery? I smell cop.
None of that, right? There's no ID verification. You don't even have to use a real name, right? Drivers don't like that when you pick someone up in a dark alley at 3 a.m. and they've got a fake name, some joke name, right? It can be seem a little sketch. Seems like a bit of a double standard. So, I know Uber is investing in some areas like dash cams, but I'm curious how you're thinking about driver safety and, what more Uber could do there.
Yeah, I think safety in general, it is a very, very, very significant area.
I think every Uber car should have a dash cam. Every car. So every ride is being watched and recorded for safety for both people.
Focus for us, an investment for us. And you're absolutely right, which is, it goes both ways, right? You want riders to feel safe. You absolutely want drivers to feel safe. They're on the road a lot. It's often...
Well, I think drivers go through, you have to do a selfie check as a driver every once in a while. I think the safety on the driver's side is pretty extensive. I think the feeling for drivers is like, we go through all this, passengers don't have to do anything. I don't know, maybe a background check on every single rider who gets in your car is asking too much, but is it too much to ask some of them to verify an ID, to use a real name when they get into your car, or the rides must be under the account holder? Because it's sort of like the wild, wild west right now when it comes to, those things for passengers.
And I think all of those factors are factors that we're looking at. And I'll give you one example, which is if you're not using a credit card that's verified, or you're using, for example, a gift card, right? Mm-hmm. We will now actually force you to show ID because we want to make sure we know what that person is. So we are absolutely kind of looking at situations that have an increased probability of something happening, of being less safe for the driver. And we are systematically actioning those issues based on, actual reports that we get in terms of safety and incidents. So this is something that's super, super important for us. And the balance is, if you ask for background checks, et cetera, on riders, you're not going to have any riders. You're not going to have any business.
Sure.
So this is.
Are you sure? I think riders will be happy to do background checks. It's just a one-time thing, and then they can ride on Uber for the rest of their life. Did they even test that?
Something that we are very focused on, and we're looking at actually what's happening and taking on the most potentially fraught circumstances, and we are raising the safety level and the requirements on those circumstances. This is super important for us. Like my goal is for Uber to be the safest transportation platform on earth for drivers and riders. Because ultimately, long term is the right thing to do, short term and medium term and every single day and night. Yeah. But long term is good for business. If you feel safer driving for Uber, you will tend to drive for us before you drive other platforms. Yeah. So it is the right thing to do. It's a big focus, but it will be great for business long term.
Very cool. Well, I think that's a good note to end on, unless you have anything else you really must get off your chest. I really appreciate the time and coming on.
No, thank you for staying honest, and you should feel free to criticize because that's how we get better. Take care.
Take care.
Very spicy, very interesting interview, guys. Well, anyways, I want to hear from y'all. What do you think about this interview? What do you think about Dara Khosrowshahi and Harry Campbell? I think Harry Campbell, all in all, did a really good job. And I think honestly, Dara, towards the end, he was, pulling on my heartstrings. I honestly do feel like they are doing a lot for drivers. I know in the beginning I was like, come on, stick it to him. But, I don't know. I feel like they're trying to do the most that they can. I mean, obviously they have millions of drivers, so it's like kind of hard to just say, okay, increase the fare for everybody. But I don't know, it seems like they're doing the best that they can. I don't know, that's just kind of the vibe I'm getting, but maybe I don't know. Maybe he's just a good CEO and he's good at convincing me. But yeah, guys, check out Solo, link down below. Sign up for Solo, the business app for gig workers. You can sign up and get $15 just for signing up for a free app. All you gotta do is link your gig account. And they have some really cool features like guaranteed pay, which you can check out. So when you go out and drive or do deliveries, you make sure that you're getting guaranteed pay. So you don't go out and drive and, not getting that utilized hourly wage. So thanks for watching, guys. You guys are great. I'll talk to you soon. Bye now.